I just realized I was muted. All right, guys. So check this out. So today we got an awesome interview. Lately on the podcast, we've really been doing our due diligence of working and really trying to create those open conversations and really take down the gatekeeping and let people in. One of the biggest things is knowing that you're not alone, whether it's struggling with your plants, struggling with your mental health, or just struggling how to roll a joint. I mean, there's so many ways that we can help you out, and the community is here for you guys. And this is what it's all about. Tonight is a really special guest to me because this is the first time Melissa has ever shared her story, and she actually got the confidence through our last interview on Wednesday. And I want to talk quickly about a couple of things before we dive in. One of them being that I have a couple of things I want to share about. Give me 2 seconds here so I can pull this up correctly here. There we go. I really want to share a couple of things because one of the things I really value is the community and conversation. And when we can take these conversations and dive so much deeper and to really create a strong value, a lot of what we've been talking about lately has been addiction, as far as heroin, fentanyl, alcoholism, a lot of different things. And last week I had three keynote sentences that I wanted to speak into, and I want to talk them about again today. Kurt Cobain, the lead vocalist for Nirvana, said that drugs are a waste of time. They destroy your memory and your self-respect and everything that goes along with your self-esteem. They're not good at all. Alice in Chains said that he wrote about drugs, and I don't think I was being unsafe or careless by writing about them. However, my thinking pattern went, when you try to keep things hidden, they fester. You have to be honest about what's going on and open up about it. That's the only way it's going to be. And then Edgar Allan Poe, who's a famous American writer, said, I have absolutely no pleasure in stimulants in which I sometimes so madly indulge. It has not been in the pursuit of pleasure that I have pearled my life and reputation and reason. It has been the desperate attempt to escape from torturing memories, from a sense of unstoppable loneliness and the dread of some strange impending doom. And I think a lot of this, relates is there's writing on the wall, and when we dive deep, we can get deeper. And I think a lot of the things that we experience, is the thought of, are we alone? And then when we deal with challenges in life, whether it's physical, mental, spiritual, is what drives us forward, what brings us closer to finding the answers to get the life that we so deserve and need for ourselves, especially our families, our friends, and everything like that. Before I bring Melissa on, I did want to show off this new piece that I got here at National Cannabis Festival. My friend Kyle shot his wedding 9 years ago, believe it or not, and he owns Glass Flow Art. He was there, and he gave this for us as the official showpiece. So every time we do a podcast or anything like that, we are now going to be hitting out of this device, which is pretty cool. So without further ado, I want to bring on Melissa. So I hope she's ready. Welcome.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. Nervous, but good.
Well, you came to the right place. And I, first of all, want to thank you so much again for having the courage to come on and to share your story. Before we dive about who you used to be, let's talk about who you are today. You're a mother of 3. Yeah. And dive a little bit into it. Are you in the growing community? Are you growing with us?
So Mac does all the growing. I like to be there and learn little things from him and watch him and stuff like that. But I work full time at a medical office, and then my 3-year-old and my older 2 take up a lot of my time. But it definitely is a goal of mine to start setting apart some time, because I do want to start growing with him. He's so passionate about it, and I'd like to, do it with him and stuff like that.
That's awesome. So yeah. Talk about your family. You guys are located in Arizona, which is where I met Mac, who, for those who don't know, Mac is Grownomics. He's also the mod to our server or to our platform here. And he's been nice enough to allow Melissa to share her story. And he got her ready today. He got her set up with the backdrop. So he's really had to put your best foot forward. So bravo to Matt.
Yeah. I know he's really gotten me to step out of my comfort zone and help me all the way through it. So if it weren't for him, I probably wouldn't have had the courage to do it.
When you talk about coming out of your comfort zone internally, even though you haven't done it yet, what are you hoping to accomplish with that? Like what is your mission with telling your story now?
For one, I hope that it touches somebody. Maybe it helps somebody feel like they're not alone. Somebody may want to reach out after. And then also, I think it's good for me. I haven't talked about it a lot. I still am going through all the healing stages and all of that. So like, I still will like tear up when I talk about it. And then I don't always dive deep into it with other people. They may know little parts of it, but I think it's a healing for yourself and for others to talk about your experience and what you went through and how you overcame it. I think it's healing for both people. And then it's hopeful for the other person, like, okay, I can do this. She did it. I can do it too.
You know, it's really cool. Yesterday, I was at National Cannabis Festival, and a lady saw me doing my interviews, and she actually came up to me and asked me if we could start talking and that she would love to be on the podcast. And I said, absolutely, sure. And we actually started talking about heroin addiction and her life and how, you know, like, and that's what I love about people. And this is why I kind of feel like people who have recovered in the sense of like any trauma, PTSD, you know, depression, anxiety, drug addiction, whatever. I mean, too much coffee, whatever. When you see these people and they're getting to where they want to be, the smiles on their faces, the way they carry themselves, I feel like, and honestly, sometimes it's in a higher way because you don't realize like how close you are to losing your life until you're in a situation like that. And, you know, as we dive into your conversation tonight, you're one of these people who have, you know, dealt with a health battle where, you know, it could have easily taken your life. And in that thing, and what we were talking about last week is, you know, the decisions and mindsets of, you know, anybody that, you know, because I think addiction, just like with my depression, my anxiety, is like a disease. It's not something we control. It's not something that we ask for. It's not something that we just feel like, hey, we're going to go be self-destructive and do things, you know. But I think being able to grapple with the thought of reality, like I could really lose everything, including me, and then being able to pull yourself back says a lot about your like your mind, spirit, and your spirituality, you know, and how you're able to do that. Because like Russell Brand said, until you step into the minds, unless there's the structured support system, there is no hope. Would you agree with that?
I do agree with that. I agree with that 100%. I think everything is mind over matter. I also think we're very routine habitual people. So once you start getting in the routine and stuff of that, your mind just programs yourself to be like that. It's not until you finally do step out of that till you realize, oh my God, I was like in this cloud and my brain was just on this one track of like going this way. And then now I've stepped out of it and I'm still like retraining my brain. I have a very addictive personality with or without drugs. It doesn't matter if I'm an addict or not. I have a very addictive personality. I have to fight with my mind all the time. But I think when you start learning how to control your mind, step in your mind, understand yourself a lot more, it just becomes so much easier. It's very enlightening.
Now, would you say that the kickover for that mindset, is that something that, in your opinion, is that internal? So that's something that you developed along the way? Like maybe like, for example, like, maybe for 2 weeks straight, I go to bed at 3:00 in the morning, and then every day I feel like shit. And then I realized, well, maybe if I just went to bed earlier, I wouldn't feel this way anymore. Is that kind of like a similar thought process where you almost kind of get tired of the lifestyle?
Oh yeah. There was a good long period of time where I didn't even want to get high anymore. I wasn't having fun. I was only really just not being sick. I wasn't even, high anymore. I didn't want to do it anymore. It was almost like the complete definition of insanity. I'm just still doing it every day. And then there's this guy in my head letting me know, like, we don't want to do this anymore. We're done. But then there's this other guy like, well, we're going to still do this. And then there's me like battling it. And then just, and then eventually I go one way or the other. And it took a very long time to stop listening to this guy and start listening to this one,
Yeah, and with that, how many times do you think you turn down that inner voice to change? Like, is it like thousands of times, hundreds of times? Like, how many times did you really think to yourself, like, man, I kind of feel like I got to get out of this?
Oh, thousands of times, years.
Yeah.
like because I would do good for a while and then I would just fall right back down, because when I would get clean, I wasn't taking the steps you need to take afterwards. You need to do some things. You need to do some healing. You need to figure out who you are. You have to retrain your brain. You can't just, oh, I'm clean now, that's it. You also have to try to find purpose in life. You got to find something to live for. You got to start doing something. You have to start making a routine. You have to rebuild your day because you were in this routine of doing this one thing for so long. You got to figure out what you're going to do now. And it can't just be sitting around, because when you sit around with your thoughts, you don't talk to anybody, you're going to go right back to what you were doing because you didn't heal. You didn't change your patterns. You just aren't using anymore. And soon enough, you will probably use again because you didn't heal and you didn't take the steps you need to after to do so.
I definitely agree. All right, well, now that we've got a great sense of who you are today and the beautiful mindset that you do have, let's start talking and diving deep. One of the biggest things that most people that I talk to with addiction is it's not self-serving. So this isn't just something you decide to just go out and do and to become, in this situation. You mentioned that it started in high school with cocaine. And
Yeah.
and like the normalcy you felt of, and I think maybe that's how we all kind of fall into it, is I think that it's not a problem because it doesn't seem like a problem. So let's talk about it.
So that was like, on the weekends when we would all get together and go out together on the weekends, we would just do it. We would go in the bathroom, us girls, and then share with each other and then just have a good time. But like, we weren't doing it during the week at school or, and we're still going to school. So of course, in my mind, I'm thinking we're just doing it for fun. And I didn't do it for, a super, super long time, but I did do it. And then it went from that to now we're doing ecstasy on the weekends. Like, it was just always something with me. And then when I graduated, it was alcohol. I think I was just constantly trying to fill a void, but I didn't realize it at first. I think at first I thought I'm just wanting to have fun, but I wasn't really having fun. And it took a while to realize that. And but then by then it was too late. It was like, well, now this is my coping mechanism. This is what I do now. This is all I know how to do. I don't have any other coping mechanism or anything. And so it kind of all stemmed from that. It did all happen in high school, just thinking you're having fun and then not realizing that I already had some mental health issues that I needed to work through. And then just kind of piling it up for a very, very long time. I think you're muted.
That happens. Sometimes when I cough, I don't want to interrupt the guest.
Oh.
Because when I smoke, I kind of cough a lot. But I think I agree with you a lot. I personally have never been an addict of like heroin or fentanyl. I spent most of my time on like psychedelic drugs, research chemicals, which may or may not have been too good for me, stuff like that. But I definitely agree with you because when I first started doing acid, one of the things with me is so how I got into the rave scene and how I used to, because I used to be against all weed, drugs. I thought weed made you dumb. I thought, that people that smoked weed just, like stole stuff and were just like alcoholics, right? And then I had a friend that kind of like challenged me and he's like, you talk a lot of shit about weed, but you don't ever smoke. And he's like, maybe you should smoke before you just judge people. So I did wind up smoking and I got to the point where I was like paranoid as shit. where I'd have to like sit down and sleep it off. And then I was like, well, damn, if all my friends can enjoy being high, what the fuck's wrong with me? You know what I mean? So we kind of able to work through it. But one of my points I was getting back to was when I first started doing acid in the rave scene, I went to go to these events, and at first everybody looked like very magical, like youth wise, and just like I just had this like sense of just like, like this was like this fun, beautiful place of all these, great people. And then as I started, see, I was able to just put it away on the weekends, and work, and not even think about it. I used to treat it like, doing psychedelics like a football game, like it's something I would do on Sundays. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the more and more I started going to these events, I started to see the decay of people, because most people in a lot of the situations weren't leaving. They live this, and as an outsider who has no clue what real addiction is like, other than documentaries and some friends who have gone through some troubled things. My best friend died behind a dumpster from a heroin overdose. Now, he's not the person I knew growing up with. He did some really bad shit, and that's another story. But one thing that is kind of funny to you, not funny, but what you said is you just think this, oh, I'm just going to do it on the weekends, and everybody just does it on the weekends, and everybody does it like I'm starting to do it, but you don't realize until you're really in it. It's like some of these people don't get out. And I like one time we were at this festival, and I was tripping acid like really hard. And I'm walking around, and there's this guy on the step, and he's crying, and he has one tooth left in his mouth. And he's talking about how he wants to kill himself because everybody that he looks at, they look at him like a monster or like a clown. And he just wishes he could smile at people. And he can't, because drugs ruined his mouth. And he was pretty much saying that, listen, in a year's time, if I don't get my teeth fixed, I'm going to kill myself. And this is at the event with people walking around. I'm sitting here tripping my balls off, and I'm like, like I'm here on acid, and this guy is like crying, and I'm here having a good time, and this guy's like, it's so weird. So sorry to go off track, but it's very interesting how you had the same perception. That it's like, oh, it's harmless. It's not as big deal. You can never really get addicted, type deal. So moving forward, what was, like, you said you had some underlying issues before, but what was the real point to experiment? Like, why did you want to start?
Well, I'm a real, like, I don't even know how to put it, I guess. I'm a really outgoing person. I'm a very, I believe in experience. And I guess just at the time it was, my friends around me were all just doing it. It's just the experience. You're just in the experience. I'm just down to see what it's about, I guess. I don't think that I realized that my parents both were addicts, so they have an addictive personality. I also have a very addictive personality. And maybe for some people, as a teenager, it's very normal to try these things, do these things, and then, you're fine. You don't get addicted to it. You go live a normal life. That's not the case for all of us, though, especially if it's something that already kind of lies in our family genes. So I think I just didn't know. I thought I was just having fun, just trying things. It's just in the moment. It's just for the experience, the memory, whatever. You only live once. Not realizing that it was going to affect me in a very big way, just because I already had some issues, and it just doesn't mix well with addiction and drugs.
Now, that's interesting that you said that your parents were also addicts, and the perception of being a child before you truly understood by becoming a user. What was your interpretation of their lifestyle and how they lived life?
So my mom got clean when I was about 3, and she had my little brother. So growing up, my mom did not use. So I only knew my mom was an addict because she's been honest with me about that when I was younger. But I didn't know that till I was a little bit older. My dad, however, he would use on and off. He would go through periods of time where he would be clean, working, things would be good. And then boom, you know, because he deals with mental things as well. And so he would just go off the rails sometimes and then use. So it was always very chaotic. You never knew what kind of mood he was going to be in. Very irresponsible. Mom was the responsible one, but dad was also like the fun one. He did take us to go do things. He never used drugs in front of us. I didn't even know he used drugs. I just thought he was kind of crazy, you know, like that's just dad. That's how he is. It wasn't until I was about 14 and we moved here and he started getting into meth pretty bad with people in my neighborhood that I started realizing that he was using. And I actually knew, like, I had friends that were a little bit older than me that were like using with him and stuff. So I, you know, would find out from the grapevine, and it was pretty embarrassing, and it sucked. And so as a kid, I didn't know that they were addicts. I just thought, you know, it's unstable at home. My mom yells because my dad is so irresponsible. And then there's great times where everything's going good. Everything's normal. My mom always, you know, showed up for us, took with PTO at school. So I had like a normal childhood where there was periods of just like chaos. We moved around a lot. I've lived in like 6 different states. I went to like 3 different schools in 7th grade. They were all in different states. So I think part of my issues kind of started with just always moving around, always being the new kid, never feeling like I belonged. And then finding belongingness and then packing up and leaving and never seeing those people again. I think that really messed with me a lot. And that's probably where some of my issues kind of started.
You know, it's interesting that how did that change the way you felt about your parents, like being an addict, like understanding that your dad was causing problems, that the house really wasn't stable, and not that any house in America really is, but
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, how did that change you? Because it's just like a parent who smokes cigarettes and then their kids wind up smoking cigarettes, but their whole life they've been told that cigarettes are bad for you. But because the parents smoke, you know, they follow in those kind of footsteps. Or like there's a movie called Edward Smalley Saves His Family or something. It's this really weird movie, and this guy's kind of like this like not very successful therapist, but everybody in his family has gone on the roof, drinking a beer, done roof work, and fall off and died. And in the movie, his dad is like does that every day, like kind of like anticipating to doing the same thing or falling off the roof. And it's just it's a weird comedy, but it's kind of one of those things. Like, how does that affect you? Like when somebody was like, "Oh, hey, we'll try this," and you're like, "Well, my dad did that, and I saw it," but then you do it anyways.
Insanity, right? Like I honestly, I guess I didn't think about it in the moment. You kind of just don't think, well, just because he was an addict doesn't mean I'm gonna be. I'm not dumb. I know what I'm doing. You always think you know better than the next person. My experience isn't gonna be your experience. You can't tell me anything. I know what I'm doing. And those are the kind of thoughts that will get you in trouble. You always need to be open to learning and realizing that you don't know everything. Because my mom did, you know, tell me things and I did know better. I don't think in high school I ever thought I would ever be a drug addict. I never looked at myself like I was one. It wasn't until I got a little bit older. And then even then when I first started becoming one, I of course thought I'm not like those other drug addicts though. Like I'm not like them. I'm different. Like I still like I'm a normal person. I still live a normal life, but I'm not. I'm just like them. I'm experiencing the same issues as them. I'm just as hopeless as them. I'm just as lost as them. You know, all of those things. But at the time, you're not thinking that when you're first starting it. You're just thinking you're just doing whatever. You don't think that you're going to end up just like the other person or just like my dad did. I definitely didn't think that at all. And then, you know, I think I appreciate my parents' struggles a lot more because I understand them now. You know, I went through them too. I definitely don't blame my parents for anything that I went through. I definitely should have learned better from their mistakes. And that's why I hope now talking about these things, you know, hopefully, you know, my kids will never go through that. They'll know better. I remember my mom years ago seeing track marks on my arm when we were shopping for Halloween costumes. And she was like, you know, I hope you never have to see that on Aaliyah. And that's my daughter. And so that was a really low point for me. Like, oh my God, what if my daughter grows up and does the same thing? Or my son? And so I think talking about this, getting it out, and more people just doing it, we're really starting a movement. Everybody is talking about drugs and overdosing right now. It's a really bad epidemic. So I'm hoping as our children are growing up, they just know better. It's been talked about enough. It's been openly brought up and really dived deep into. And then maybe, there's some better programs and stuff set up to help people when they are going through that. Because when you're an addict and you don't have family, you don't have anybody to cheer you on, to be there for you, to hold you accountable, to get you out of that. How do you get clean? You feel hopeless. So I'm lucky I had people. Once I was ready, they were there for me. Some people don't have that. So we need to have, good programs, people out there ready to help that person. And for those people to know that even though you don't have anybody around you, there's strangers out here that want to help you and want to be there for you because they've been there.
It really reminds me. I don't know if you've read the book One More. I never have. I just know the quote from Instagram, from the videos, but I know about the story. And the writer is a multimillionaire, very successful person, and he created the One More effect. And what the One More effect is his dad was an alcoholic, and one day he asked his dad, "Hey, Dad, do you ever think you'll stop drinking for good?" And his dad said, "I don't know, but I'll tell you this, I'll go one more day." And it's the concept of, even this involves to life and business and success and mindset too, but it's the concept that our days are never easy. My life isn't easy. Sometimes, I live in a balance from time to time, where it can really go back and forth. I'm sure you do, everybody listening does. And with this balance that we have to remember that it's just a matter of time. And you don't have to make a decision. One of my friends told me through emailing that you don't always have to respond right away to an email. You can take a day or two. Nothing needs an answer right away. And if you take that concept to life as well, when you give yourself a little bit of extra breathing room, I think that it helps. I think, and that's why I have this thing called like the 3 a.m. effect, where sometimes I'll stay up to like 3 a.m. and I feel like 3 a.m. most people, like for me in particularly, I feel like with nothing going on, like I feel like the world stops for a minute, and then I get to analyze things. And there's things that I like and I don't like. There's things where I'm like, damn, I should have done that better, or maybe I shouldn't have acted that way, or maybe I should have done this better, And I think that's what we need to realize too is, I always grew up thinking that there was a perfect world, and some people live the perfect life, and creating a weird, like, kind of warped reality, thinking that by a certain age I should have this, and I should have done this, and I should, be able to do this. And what you realize is it doesn't apply like that. All of that stuff, it works for some people, but the problem is we don't see everything, and we never will. And a lot of lives and a lot of the way we live, at least in my opinion, is through perception. A lot of people say that, a lot of people are reacting to the world, not living in it. And these reactions are based off of what we see, what we hear, what we think, what we feel. And the mind's a powerful thing. And I think when you start to give yourself clarity and you start to analyze yourself and say, what is important? And would you agree that maybe more of your mindset came from almost dying, or was that not as significant? Was there something else that gave you more value to it?
Oh no, I think that was the nail on the coffin. Honestly, I feel like that was like a godsend for me. If that wouldn't have happened, I don't know what I'd be doing right now, or you know what I mean. I could have been doing good right now and doing great, but at that point, I don't know. My mindset wasn't the greatest. And then when I woke up in the hospital, And then at that point, they still didn't know if I was going to make it. So just because I was awake, they still didn't have high hopes. I realized, oh my God, when you're sitting in a hospital room by yourself, hooked up to a bunch of stuff, and you're alone, you think about a lot. Obviously, the biggest thing is time. You waste a lot of time about stupid things. Worried about what somebody thinks about you, worried about this, worried about that, letting your fears get in your way. I just started thinking about all these things like, oh my God, I've wasted so much time, and for what? And then you don't know if you're even going to have any more, and you start thinking about all these things that you want to do, all these things that you wish you would have done differently. And you get real scared too. You're scared. And then when I realized that I was going to make it, I kept telling myself and promising myself, well, I'm going to live right. Like, I'm going to do this right. Like, I'm not wasting any more time. Time is so precious. Life is so precious. Like, life is beautiful. There's nothing to be sad about every day, all day. It doesn't matter. You need to realize that you have one life to live, and you cannot live it sad. You have to find the beauty in something, and there's beauty all around you. And I realized that when I was in there. I couldn't wait to go outside and just feel the sunlight, things like that. I couldn't wait to drink coffee. I just started appreciating all these little things, and I'm like, these are the things that make me happy, because I lost sight of things. I felt like nothing made me happy anymore. I didn't have happiness or joy in anything. And so it was scary. That's a scary feeling, that you just can't find happiness. You just feel empty. After that happened to me, and I realized that all these people around me loved me, and that I had a second chance, I took life way differently. I completely changed everything, the way I think, the way I do things. I went back to school. I became a medical assistant. I'm very involved in all three of my children's life. My two older kids, I lost custody of them, well, guardianship of them, during my addiction. My mom has them. So even though I've been clean for quite some time now, they still live with my mom. They go to school near her home. So I'm still working towards other things. I haven't gotten everything set back in stone, but I have goals, and I've created goals. I've reached certain goals, and that makes you feel good. It gives you something to live for. You find purpose. You also have to realize that you can't get clean or, do things a different way for other people. You have to actually want it for yourself, or it will never work. You can't get clean for your kids. You can't get clean for your parents or for the parole officer or, whoever. You got to want it, because it's never going to work unless you're ready for it. Once you are ready for it, it will work 100%. You just start putting in the footwork, and just one foot in front of the other, day by day, and it will happen. Doors will start opening for you, and life will completely change.
And I appreciate you saying that. And because I think a lot of times we want to do things to please other people. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've had girlfriends in the past tell me it's either them or weed. Thankfully, I'm still smoking today. Not that, but it's just one of those things where it's like I would never quit for a person. Why would you do that? Because I feel like that's like a scapegoat, because in reality, you're not really doing it for yourself. You're doing it in the ideal that it'll make somebody or your relationship better with them if you didn't do it. But then it's like, well, because like, okay, so when I got kicked out of Freemason, or almost got kicked out of Freemasonry, right? They brought me into a meeting, and they were sitting down in like a half circle. Now, this is during COVID. So my company was doing like unbelievable numbers, right? And they were sitting down and talking about how they're worried about me ruining my life and losing my business, all to smoking weed, mind you. And it's like, you guys are idiots, because you guys are all alcoholics. That's all you guys do is drink on the weekends and smoke your cigars. And yet you're gonna down me. But guess what? If I need to do something just like you, stoned, I can go do something and be in full control of my body. You can't. If something happened right now and you were fully like 6 beers in, what are you gonna do? Nothing. And you're gonna sit here and ridicule somebody else because they've found a new form. One thing I like about cannabis, and one thing that I've been doing a lot with these conversations with people, is yesterday during that conversation, the lady said that as an addict, and maybe you'll agree to this, tell me what you think. She said, I wanted something she's like, when I became clean, I wanted something that still allowed me to feel, that didn't make me numb like the pharmaceuticals. And I love cannabis because cannabis still allows me to feel.
Right. No, I agree 100%. I have anxiety and other issues, so I'm supposed to take medication for it, but it just doesn't mix well with me. The weed helps me. I smoke before bed, and it calms all my crazy thoughts running through my head. I can go right to sleep. In the morning when I wake up, just smokable, it calms my nerves. I don't feel as irritable, and then I can definitely still feel. I still cry. I still laugh. I still, all of those things. Whereas with the medication, it's a different feeling. You can almost feel like something is in there interacting with your like chemicals and like changing them for you or whatever. And I don't really like it. And then cannabis actually helped with my obsessive compulsive disorder tremendously. I have OCD very, very bad. It controls my thoughts, little things that I do. But smoking weed has like changed it completely. And it started when I was 16 and I first really started smoking weed. And that's when I realized I loved it because it calmed me down. Like it calmed all my crazy racing thoughts. And it made me stop doing all these like obsessive little compulsive things that I had been doing for like years, like these little crazy weird habits that I had formed because my brain like told me to. And then I just kept doing them for years and I couldn't stop. Weird things like leaving the house and I had to touch this picture frame before I left because if I didn't, something bad was going to happen. Just all these weird things that my brain would tell me. When I started smoking weed, it kind of ceased that. Like my brain just kind of calmed down. Like I would still get those thoughts, but there was like another thought that was like, you don't really need to do that. We're just telling you to, you don't really need to do that. And then after quite some time, it was like, okay, yeah. And now I'm way out of those types of habits. Of course I still have my little things that I do, but not how it used to just take over my brain. And I'm young at the time, so I didn't really understand what was going on. I didn't know I had OCD. I didn't know I had severe anxiety. So I just didn't even know what was going on. And I think cannabis completely helps with that. I never felt like I needed treatment or medication or anything other than the cannabis for it.
Diving back, because now kind of I want to like backtrack our conversation a little bit more to like the early thing. You said that your mom made a comment when you guys were out shopping that she said, I hope you never see marks on your, what is your daughter's name again?
Aaliyah.
Mm-hmm. It reminds me of when I was younger, I used to smoke cigarettes and I used to hide them from my parents. And I don't smoke cigarettes anymore. I smoke weed. But one time when we were on a road trip with my dad and I was like, oh, I'm going to go to this. He's like, I was like early, like maybe 15, 16 at the time. This is early. And I was still sneaking them. I couldn't even buy them or whatever. Right. And I was smoking and I was by the outside of the building and my dad, I guess, was looking for me and it wasn't in the store. So he came out and turned the corner and there I am with a cigarette in my hand. And for me, I just was like, I felt like what a shame.
Yeah.
But two, it was like, I don't even know what to say. You know what I mean? Like, it's just awkward. You know what I mean? It's just because it's like you're hiding it. But two, it's like they're smarter than you. They're your parents. You know what I mean? And it's just like, but why? You know what I mean? Like, you're too young to smoke anyways, and yet you're hiding cigarettes and doing all this stuff. It's just I feel like sometimes it's I guess maybe in my sense, like it was a way of like feeling more adultish or doing adult things. Because I think one of the biggest perception for me that I deal with is as a person, I always wanted to grow up really, really fast. And now as an adult, I really do miss my childhood. And I really wish I could go back because I just didn't appreciate things like I do now. And I think that's something as you get older, you start to realize is like we were talking about earlier too, is like the relationships, the people, the things like that. Do you and your mom have a good relationship today?
Oh yeah,
Same.
we have a great relationship.
How did
Really, really good.
how did your mom, as a former addict, deal with you being an addict?
Um, I think it really, really was really hard for her, but I think she dealt with it good because she didn't come. Now I know she probably went to bed every night, scared to death that she was going to lose me, things like that. But she also didn't completely shut me out and not talk to me and you know what I mean. But she also didn't enable me either. So like she fed me, she picked me up, she would bring me to her house, things like that. So I was never completely like shut out, and I was always welcome to come to her home. I never had to be homeless or out on the streets or anything like that. But she also wasn't going to let me be there and do drugs either. So I think she was good about not being an enabler, because it's very hard not to do that when your loved one is doing drugs. You want to be there for them, but you also have to be careful not to enable them. And so it's kind of hard to balance that. And I think she did well with that. But I know I scared her every day for years. And she would get mad at me a lot. She would yell at me. She would say things to me. But it was all the truth. It was all things that I needed to hear. And I think it was just, she was angry with me. She wanted me to snap out of it, get it together. She knew I was better than what I was doing, that this wasn't my story. This wasn't my life. But she never lost faith in me or hope in me. She always knew. And the minute I was ready to get clean, she would come to the house and visit me while I was sick, brought the kids. They were all cheering me on, so she was always there for me every step of the way, no matter what I did, no matter how mad she was, no matter how many times I backtracked and did the wrong thing. As soon as I was ready to do the right thing, she was right there. So I think she handled it on the outside very well. I'm sure on the inside it was killing her.
I've always wondered that too, because it must be heartbreaking for the parent, because as you get older, you realize, and you realize as my own child now that I was not with that, but just like my attitude, and then I see it carry through him, and then he's projecting the same type of emotions or same type of outputs and stuff like that, and you don't realize. I just feel like as a parent, like, because see, and that's why the 3 a.m. effect, where it's like you in the moment we're living in it, like we're like that reacting to the world. So it's
Right.
hard to not be in emotions. It's not hard not to yell and scream and carry on. Me and Lacey, like, no, Lacey's not the yeller. I am sometimes, but it's not mean. It's just I have very high expectations. Sometimes maybe a little bit too unrealistic, but I want it to be like the movies, like perfect. And I have to realize, in a sense, that it's not going to be perfect. And I've been getting better about it. But I think too, with that, is the fact that just like that one more effect, it's just one more day, because it's something you're always going to battle. Now, let me ask you a question. Did the almost dying happen before or after you had kids?
So I literally had Maddox. I had him April 12th, 2021, the day after my birthday. I got out of the hospital April 15th. The very next day started feeling weird, like I couldn't breathe. Within 4 days was in the hospital. So I literally within days, like Maddox was days old and I was in the hospital. So Mac and my mom, they had my kids, they had the baby, and I'm in the hospital dying, and he's like 5 days old. We had taken him to his first doctor's appointment the very next day after we got out of the hospital, and it was there where I realized that everything just felt kind of heavy, like I couldn't breathe, like I was very short of breath, and no matter what I did, I could not catch my breath. I did go to the hospital like 2-3 nights later, and they kind of laughed at me and acted like I was overreacting and that maybe I was like having a panic attack. I think they kind of treated me differently because they did know that I was an addict, and stuff like that in the past. I don't know, but they brought me back. They did a CAT scan, they did an EKG, all these things, and then they pumped me full of like fluids. I went pee a bunch, and then I kind of felt lighter, like I could breathe a little bit. And then they just discharged me, gave me my papers, didn't go over them with me, and then I left. The minute I got home to my mom's from leaving the hospital, which is only like 7 minutes from my mom's house, As soon as I got out of the car and walked up her stairs to her front door, I already couldn't breathe again. And then it was like a day and a half later where I guess I passed out. I was at my mom's. I lived with her at the time. Maddox and the kids were there, but it was at nighttime. And I passed out there. She had to call the ambulance. And then I was rushed to Phoenix. And then I woke up 3 days later, and they pulled they had me on a ventilator. And then they decided, well, they weren't really going to try. They said I didn't qualify for any organ transplants. My heart was shutting down, my liver, my kidneys. I had 7 blood clots all throughout my body. 3 of them were in my heart. 1 of them was in my spleen. 1 was like down here above my right leg. And then I had 1 in my foot, my right foot. And they didn't really know the cause, but now I guess I can correlate it to what's called HELP syndrome. Some women get it. It's kind of like preeclampsia, basically. They don't really know the cause of it, but I was retaining a lot of water towards the end of my pregnancy. So we were already kind of watching to make sure nothing was like wrong. And I had a lot of protein in my urine. So before Maddox was born, we already kind of knew that there was like issues going on with me. He was fine, but they were worried about me. When he was born, I had to have 2 blood transfusions during my C-section. And so I had those during that time. And then, left the hospital. And when I left the hospital, I was still very swollen, like still had severe edema in my legs. My eyes were very poofy underneath here. They were very like fat. So I just didn't look right. Like you could tell something wasn't right. Once I was at the hospital, they decided they were going to go ahead and wake me up and take the ventilator out and just see how I did. I was in the ICU for 11 days. I was doing kidney dialysis. I had tubes out of my neck. Those were hooked up to machines, and I was doing dialysis in those. I had just IVs everywhere, and I couldn't really move. I had a heart monitor all over me. I have what's called congestive heart failure now from all of that. So we have to keep an eye on that. I had to do kidney dialysis for a while after I got out of the hospital. But within like 2 months, my kidneys fully came back. I got to stop doing the dialysis, and kidneys are great, liver's great. I saw my cardiologist in January. I do not have any blood clots in my heart anymore. My heart is, relapsing and all of that, like how it's supposed to. Everything is good in my heart right now. So he doesn't want to see me again for a year. So usually people who get diagnosed with congestive heart failure, about 3% of them ever heal from it, like fully. Now, usually it's older people that get heart failure, so that's why. It's not usually, a 30-year-old person that gets it, because this happened actually when I was 29, so I wasn't even 30 yet. I was very young. And so they had hopes that because I was young, I would heal from it pretty good, but they weren't for sure. And so far, it's looking pretty good. I still need to be careful with like my salt intake. Obviously, never do drugs again. My heart can't handle something like that. So that's also a good reminder of all of that. I definitely feel like I needed that. I needed a wake-up call. I needed something huge to happen for me to really just wake up and realize that I was playing with my life, that life is too short, that if I didn't get it together, one day I was going to wake up, my kids were going to be grown. I was going to miss everything. I was going to have nothing to look back on but misery and sorrow. And that I want to live for me. I want to be happy. I want to have great things going on. And you know what I mean? It's not just for other people. It's not just I want to be a good mom. And, of course I do. But I want to be happy. I want to have a good life. I'm going to die one day. And I know that because I almost did. So I take life in a way different light now. Way different. I take way too many pictures of everything going on around me. Like, birthday parties, all of it. I try to live in the moment more. I try to make sure that I stay humble because I've been at very, very low points in my life. And so when I see other people down there, I have to make sure and remember that I've been there too and try to be a helping hand or, if I can. But yeah, I think it was a godsend for that to happen to me. And I'm actually glad that it did because I don't know where I would be right now if it didn't. I don't know, even though I had just had Maddox, I was still scared of the mindset that I still had. I didn't know if I was going to be able to do right, if I was going to finally grow up and just get it together. Like I was scared. I was scared of myself. I couldn't trust myself.
And literally within days, boom, I'm in the hospital dying. And thank God, because it totally, I woke up a completely different person, and I needed that. So.
No, I think that's really awesome because sometimes, like, we have a friend, Lacey's friend, who passed away, and she did a heroin overdose. Her friends wrapped her up in a rug and threw her out of a rolling car at 32-degree weather in the middle of the night,
Oh
and
my
she was
God.
found on the side of the road, barely living. When we went to go visit her, she was in an autism state. 3 months later, did heroin again, and she did in a sense where everything was good. She looked like she was getting back, and she went home. I don't think she meant to do it, and then overdosed.
Oh
And
my
it's
God.
really awesome for you that you got to see the light because in that situation she didn't, and
Right,
to be thrown out of a car, you know, out of that. Luckily for you, you were in the care of your mom,
right,
and she was able to call 911 and get you medical help because who knows if you would have woken up at all,
right.
having all those ventilators and everything. But I think,
Mhm.
I think that's just so important because when we were in that hospital, like, she barely could speak. And I wish Lacey was down here to share her story. Her name is Taylor, and she was a good friend of Lacey's, but she was a wild child,
Mhm.
and it's just one of those things where I feel like we're all like candles, and some of us just burn out way too early, and some
Yep.
of us are like sparklers, where it's just uncontrolled and it just goes by so fast. Talk about what it's like to be unconscious for 3 days. It seems like a very like unrealistic thought. Like, how do you gauge that? Like, when you're like, oh yeah, it's been 3 days since you've been here, and then you're also in a ventilator. So when you woke up, you have a tube in your throat, so
Right.
you're not able to talk.
Mhm.
You're like
Um,
looking around, right?
yes. So I'm in this room, and I'm laying here, and I can hear like whispers above me, and it's like a doctor and like a nurse, and like, and mind you, I have no idea where I'm at because I don't remember. I remember that I just recently had a baby. I remember that. And so I'm starting to go through these thoughts in my head. I'm thinking, "Oh my God, did my doctor like leave a surgical tool inside of me when he did my C-section?" Like, I'm trying to figure out why I'm in the hospital because I know that I'm in the hospital, but I have no idea why. And I can hear the doctor and the nurses whispering, and they're like, "Do you think she's going to make it? Do you think she's going to make it?" And the guy's like, "I don't know. I don't know." And then I can hear this other guy who must be realizing that my eyes are open, and he keeps asking me, or he's telling me he's pulling this tube out, and then he's asking me if I want him to brush my teeth because I've just had like this tube in my throat for days, right? And I'm just like blown away. I have no idea what's going on. And I feel like he keeps repeating the question. Now he probably only asked me once, and I'm just on all these drugs and don't know. But it felt like he just kept saying it, and I'm just trying to figure out what the heck. Finally, this guy comes in and starts talking to me. He's asking me if I know where I am. I say no. I know I'm in a hospital, but I don't know where I'm at. He tells me that I'm in Phoenix at a hospital. He asked me if I know what day it is. I knew that it was just 420, like a few days prior. So I'm like, I don't know. I know it's April, like April maybe 22nd or something. It wasn't. It was like the 24th, but I was close. But the doctor was like, no, it's November. I guess it's like a trick they do on people when they first wake up. They just want to see how sound your brain is. Well, it's freaked me out. Like, I was like, there's no way I just was asleep for 6 months. Like, there's no way. And I was like, no, I just had a baby, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, okay, you are pretty sound. And so, like, he knew that I was like aware of what was going on. I still find it hard to grasp my brain around it because I don't know where my brain was during that time. Like, I don't get it. Like, I don't remember it at all. I don't remember. Like, I was awake when I first went to the hospital, my mom said. Like, when the ambulance came and all that, I'm awake at this point, but I don't remember any of that. I remember absolutely none of it. I just remember being woken up in the hospital room. I guess the day prior, my dad and my grandma came to see me, and they said, if you can hear me, put your thumb up. And I had put my thumb up, so I obviously could hear them. So I started to come to maybe. And then the next day they decided to wake me up. from there, it was kind of just, let's see how she does. So they kind of moved me to a room, and it went from there. I mean, I had triple organ failure, but I left the hospital 3.5 weeks later. So I healed super quick. I was in the ICU for like 11 days and then another room for like 2.5 weeks. And then I went home. As soon as my blood INR level was low enough to go home, I was able to go home. But it is still something very hard to grasp, because like, how crazy, you know, to be asleep like that, to be gone. I don't know where I was, but to be in a medically induced coma. I still trip out sometimes because life is so good right now that I sometimes think, oh my God, like, what if I never really woke up? What if I am dead? And this is just all like my parallel universe, my life, how I wish it was going to be.
I'm dead, and everybody else that's listening is dead. If that means you're
dead.
Yeah,
you guys are all dead, and this is not real. So I do sometimes.
We were gonna do emails, but we decided to do it live. So, when in that sense, did you ever have any like spirit? Like, are you a spiritual person? Are you a person about religion? Because I'm Catholic, I believe in God and everything.
So So I was like raised with like a Christian family. So I do believe in God, of course. I wouldn't say I'm Christian. I wouldn't put a religion on it, because I know God's real. I know He's up there. I wouldn't be here if He wasn't. But I'm also a very spiritual person. I believe, like, you know, nothing happens in coincidence. Everything happens for a reason. You're exactly where you're supposed to be when you're supposed to be there, and you know what I mean. I believe in things like that. And so.
You don't have to go into the religion part. The main purpose of the question was, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, is more about, did you ever have like an out of body experience, like where you saw yourself like in a hospital on the table, like where you're like spiritual, like because you know, obviously we live in our physical form, which is like our body, right? And then we have like our spiritual form, which is, you know, the actual thing that makes us me, makes us you, you know, that light in us that creates the life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, so we have our spiritual body, our spiritual form, and then our actual physical body of what we live in. You know, I guess is how I would describe it. With that, how does a coma work? Like mentally, you don't remember anything. It's just like I'm standing up and then I black out and then all of a sudden I'm here. It's like being teleported, and it's like like the Matrix almost, like being plugged in, and now you're into this machine again, but you were just fighting like 15 dudes a second ago.
Right. Yes.
Is it like that? There's just black. There's nothing.
When you're in a coma, and I don't know if it's different for, you know, for other people. It was just black. It's scary because if you wake up from it and then you think about it, you're like, well, it was just black. There was nothing. But when I was coming to, when they were waking me up and everything was just kind of like right in those few moments, it was almost like I was up here where the bright light is, because there's this like bright light above your table. And I'm looking down at myself with the thing in my mouth, and they're pulling it out, and I can see the tops of the guys' heads or whatever. But I'm not grasping what is happening to me at all. Like I'm in a state of confusion completely.
So that's interesting. So you can actually see down, like in full detail. You can hear.
Yeah. I'm on this like weird table that like lays back. It's like a bed, you know, and it almost reminds you almost like a dentist chair in a way, because the way that it can fold up and down or whatever, but it's a little bit wider. And the room around me looked very white. That's all. And I don't even know if the room really was white, but in my memory of how it looked and everything around me was just super white. It was bright. Everything was white around me, this big bright light above me. It was just like glowing of brightness when I woke up.
That's very interesting. And then as you're waking up, like how long are you in this like state of being? Like how many minutes would you guess that you were watching it? Or was it like instant and then you're back into your body and looking up now?
It was very quick. And then I'm back in my body and I'm looking up. It was a very fast, like maybe a couple seconds, and then boom, I'm in my body and I'm looking up, and I'm trying to figure out what is going on. Like, where am I and how did I get here?
That's very interesting. And then like thought process. You said it's just state of confusion. There's no real thoughts. There's nothing. How about feeling? When does everything come into play? The throat to the IVs, the being constrained to the bed.
You
Because
feel
obviously they'll have you like locked down so you don't move if you accidentally did wake up, right? Not
right.
like you're being punished, but just
Yeah,
to protect.
they do. And then you have all these wires on you and all of these, and they had like it's like heart monitor all over me to monitor my heart. And then I had IVs right here, right here, right here, here, and in my neck on both sides, and all of these things. And then yes, I have. If you see me in person and you get close, you'll be able to see the scar on each side. This little, and then they were actually doing. Once I started my kidney dialysis, they were doing it through these two tubes. But at first, I think they might have been just using them for like medication because all my other tubes were being used for stuff. I don't know. I was just hooked up. I had bruises all down my arms from being poked 100,000 times. It became to where they'd have to bring the sonogram in for the people to use it to find a vein to even get me to draw blood or anything. So it was a lot, but you're constrained. You have just all this stuff on you. You feel so uncomfortable. There's tape all over you. I still felt like I couldn't fully breathe. So, and then while you're in there, because now I have like PTSD from like not being able to breathe. It's like I still find issues. Like if I get short of breath, sometimes it scares me. I don't like it at all. And so at this time, I'm like feeling a little bit short of breath. And anytime I do, I'm ready to press my button to have somebody come in there and make sure I'm okay or put the oxygen thing on me because I'm almost, and I almost think it was more of just my mind saying I couldn't because I was so scared or whatever. But it was, I remember them moving me. They ended up moving me to a different room. So I had some of the stuff off of me and they actually had my mom come in and explain what happened. Like none of them told me what happened. They waited for my mom to get back to the hospital and they sent her in to explain to me.
Is that, I'm guessing this is like the part of the movie where the big breakdown is and a lot of emotions flooding.
Uh-huh.
What is that like realizing in that moment? Because I've been in a car accident where me, Lacey, Logan, and Logan's grandmother should all be dead right now. And I had an emotion tied to that. What about you? Like after your mom explained everything, like just run through it.
I started just bawling my eyes out. Like I was shaking, I was bawling. I couldn't believe that happened to me and that I was alive. I'm like, wait, I'm expecting that it was something minor. And then I'm finding out I had triple organ failure and that I shouldn't even be here and that they still don't know if I'm going to pull through. And I'm just like, oh my God. And I just start crying and then, but I'm also crying tears of joy because, oh my God, holy crap. Like I'm here. Like, oh my God. And then the first thing I made my mom do was call Mac. And then he saw me on the thing, and I just started crying because, I would have never saw him again. My brother, my younger brother, he's the middle child. He was not a religious person at all, did not believe in God. It really changed him too. He broke down and was like praying and all of these things. And so that made me cry also because my mom's telling me, all these people around me that love me and care about me. And these are relationships that I had damaged during addiction. So like me and my brother, Josh, were not very close at the time at all. He still didn't really respect me much. He didn't trust that I was going to, do the right thing. But then when this happened and I almost died, it completely changed our whole relationship, brought us closer, brought the whole family closer, really, and changed everything for me.
So it's actually great that you said that because it ties into one of my questions I have for you with support like that. What kinds of support did you find to be the most helpful?
Probably just knowing that I'm not alone and that I'm loved. I think, as weird as it sounds to say that, maybe I didn't really, think that I was that loved. I had done so much damage, so much bad. I didn't have anything going for me. I wasn't doing anything good in my life. I didn't even have a job. I didn't like who I was. at all at the time. And so I didn't think anybody else around me did. I mean, I don't, so do you. So finding out that I did have love. Look, you have all these people, they love you, they're here for you, they want to see you succeed, they want to, you know, and I think that was probably the biggest thing for me, because I guess apparently I don't want to feel like I'm alone in the world. I don't think anybody does, especially when you do have family and loved ones around you. You want to feel like they love you and care about you. And when you're using, you don't think that they do, because you're unable to see that and you're unable to feel that.
Well, I guess too, in the sense that they're also going to act differently around you based on actions. Talk about life, like so. So Ronomics, because maybe people don't know him as Mac. He was through this entire thing. How long had you guys been together? During
We've been together 6 years in June.
Great. And this happens around 6 years ago with your daughter?
So when I met Mac, I was already using heroin. Yes, Mac knew my other 2 children already. He lived next door to my mom. My mom had my 2 children at the time. That was right after she had taken them in. And he was friends with my brother. They worked together. So we were kind of already intertwined at that time. And then he really just kind of took me in. And at first we were just friends. He was like doing me a favor, letting me stay there. And then within a few months, we started dating. And then a few months after that, it very quickly became very toxic, because I'm a heroin addict and he is not, you know? And so he's not understanding why I'm, you know, this way, and at the end of the day, that's all that matters to me. Like, I don't want to be sick and I don't care about it. Like, I don't want to hear what you have to say. And so it was not a healthy at all.
That's interesting. So, you know, as the quote from Russell Brand the other day about it, when you're in a relationship with somebody that is not an addict and you are, that how does that gauge the respect and morals you would have for a person like that? Or is it all love and war is all man, what do I have
all
tattooed?
is fair in love and war.
I have a tattooed here. I just can't fucking think of it. I had to read my arm. Yeah, is it like that in a relationship where once you get to that dope sick thing, I love you, but yeah, fuck you, dude. Like,
yeah.
I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah, it was a mixture, because for one, of course, you're always feeling very guilty. You're always feeling like he's the better person because you're a bad person, because you're an addict and you put this before everything else, and you know, things like that. So you've already created a certain dynamic in your own head that maybe he's not even thinking, but you are. So now that's also kind of affecting the way that you're reacting to things and reacting to him. And then I would try my best sometimes, or at least in my head, you know, at the time, try my best not to let it interfere with my relationship with him and stuff. But I would leave for hours, you know, to go get my dope and stuff like that. Because you know how dealers are, you know, they just take forever. Everything's a runaround. This person doesn't have it. You have to go to that person. And so I'd be gone for hours and then come home. And I think, you know, that for one started getting to him like, oh my God, like, what are you doing? Why is this taking you so long? And then I get mad, like, hey, leave me alone. Like, you don't understand what I just went through to even, you know, find this, and, you know, things like that. And then you, in your head, you're like, well, he's not understanding. Like, I'm sick. He's not getting it. He's not really believing me about how this feels. He doesn't get it because he's not going through it. So then you also kind of get resentment for them too, because you're like, hey, dude, shut up. You don't know how it feels, you know? And no, they don't know how it feels. Thank God, you know, but you get into those mindsets because you're a very selfish person. But what was hard for me was I'm a very self-aware person. I have a tremendous amount of self-awareness. So it's like I'm aware of everything that I'm doing, and I'm aware that I don't want to do that, and that that's not right, and that I'm going to feel bad about it later. But I'm still going to do it, and then I'm going to feel bad about it afterwards, and know that I didn't want to be like that or do that, but I'm still going to do it.
You know, it's something I would think about too. Now, from Mac's point of view, what is his thought process doing this? Even though obviously he's not understanding, how does that affect the relationship at that point?
We were very far apart from each other. We lived in the same space, but we were just completely in two different worlds. We didn't even connect anymore at all. Like, we did more fighting than anything, or like when we did try to hang out or connect. It was probably more forced than anything. And it just created where I think he also like kind of at that point, you know, didn't want to be in a relationship like that anymore, but probably also didn't want to kick me out on the streets either. So eventually he was part of what like helped me get clean. Like I realized, okay, I lost my kids and my mom's still letting me see them right now. And eventually she's not going to let me. You know, Max doesn't want to be with me anymore and we're not working out well at all. And I'm living in his apartment and look at where I've gotten myself. I have nowhere to turn. I'm completely at rock bottom. Like it's time to sober up. So it was at that point where I realized like I have nowhere to go. This guy probably doesn't want me anymore because I won't get clean and I won't fucking stop doing what I'm doing. And I keep saying that I'm going to do it. Like I keep making all these promises and having all these deep talks and then just doing the same things afterwards. So it was probably really, really hard for him during that time. And probably if I had somewhere to go, he probably would have kicked me out at that time. Like, look, you got to go. I can't take it anymore. Like eventually, you know, but because I didn't, you know, he let me stay. And then eventually I got clean. But him and I did both use meth together. Mac did use for a while and then he got clean. But Mac doesn't have the addictive personality like I do. He doesn't understand that part, he always says. Because for him, he just went through a stage where he was depressed and was in just a bad spot and was using meth every day and then eventually woke up, didn't want to use it anymore and just stopped and has been fine since. But I'm not like that. I'm different than he is on that spectrum. We're different in that way.
You know, and we're going to be, for those who don't know, Grownomics Mac is going to be on the show this Wednesday. So we'll hear about his story with meth and everything like that. When you guys used for the first time together, did that create any level of kind of understanding, like when he was doing it for his reasons and then you had it for your reasons? Was there any like common ground, or did that do anything or not?
Yeah, that was the only thing we did bond over. Really, at that point, even once I got clean from the heroin, there was already a huge drift between us. And then we're both smoking meth together now. And so we didn't really go through all the healing of what we had already put each other through prior to that. We just kind of bounced from that and just kept going forward. And I think I still felt a lot of certain things from the past. And I think he did too. And then we're just smoking meth together. And that's our only common ground. And then we're good for a couple hours. We feel super close, like the closest in the entire world to each other. Like nobody understands us like we do, you know? And then a couple hours later, it's like, I hate you so much. You're driving me crazy. Why do you do this to me? You know, those types of things. So it was very flip-flopped all the time, like a very crazy dynamic together.
It's kind of funny. It's like, I love you. I hate you. I can't live without you. I need you.
Yep.
So moving forward, during this, with all your kids being gone and everything, when does that start to click in where, you know, I don't want to disrespect you in any way, but it does sound like with addiction, it will choose you will choose that over your children at some point, right?
Right.
When does that become a balance? And when does family and love begin to win in a mind like that?
So I think in the beginning of my addiction days, it was easy for me to still use and not let it get to me as much because I was still seeing my kids like every single day and stuff like that. So in my stupid little mind, I thought, well, I'm there for them. I'm seeing them every day. But no, I wasn't there. I wasn't there for them emotionally. I wasn't there for them in the mornings when they would wake up. I would disappoint them all the time. And I didn't show up for them the way that I needed to be. But at the time in my head, I thought, well, I'm there for their birthdays. I'm there for holidays. I go to my mom's all the time and see them. So I'm still there. And hey, and I kept telling myself, well, hey, I'm going to get it together. Like, we're going to get this together. We're not going to stay this way. And then all of a sudden you look up and you realize like 2 years has passed, 2.5 years has passed, and it's been quite some time. And at that time, my mom I'm living next door to my mom. So I'm still right there by my kids, but I'm not raising them. I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do as a mom. Once I got pregnant with Maddox, I was already clean from the heroin. I moved in with my mom. I was clean. I wasn't doing the meth anymore. But I did use a couple different times during my pregnancy with Maddox. So that's how I already knew that my mindset was not in the place that it needed to be, because I had already messed up during that time. But during that time, I had moved back in with my mom. Mac and I were not together anymore. He was actually had gotten clean off of meth on his own, and we just kind of were apart. We separated from each other. During that time of being with my mom and my kids, I was absolutely probably just felt the lowest I had ever, because I'm with my kids every day now. I'm going to sleep with them. I'm seeing them every day. And I'm just realizing just how could I hurt them? Like I wasn't there for them, and making them wonder their worth, or why I couldn't stop for them. You know, but I couldn't until I was ready. I don't know why it took so long for me to wake up and realize that part. I really don't. Well, once I moved back in with my mom, that's when I realized, like, my kids, they're so precious to me. Like, I want to be here for this. Like, I don't care about anything else anymore. This is what I want to be here for, is them, to watch them grow, to make good memories for them. I don't want them to grow up and struggle and go through the same things because I gave them childhood trauma by not being there for them, or by being there but in and out. And you know what I mean? I'm not the stable one. My mom's taking care of them, and they can't count on me, just like how I felt when I was a kid. You know, how I knew that I couldn't always count on my dad all the time, which now, you know, I totally understand. You know, I see where my dad, you know, what he was going through, and I get it. So I forgive him. I hope my kids forgive me. I feel like they have. You know, it wasn't even until about a year and a half ago that my son finally stopped asking me, "Are you sure, mommy? Because you lie a lot." Like, my son has been saying that to me for years, and he finally stopped saying it like a year and a half ago. So, like, I affected my kids a lot, and I have to go to bed at night and you know, think about it, because it took me a lot of years to get it together. And then in the end, you know, I realized that, well, I never could get it right because I kept trying to do it for them, because I knew that was the right thing. Well, you got to get it together for your kids. That's what everybody's expecting you to do. But I couldn't do it because I wasn't ready. Once I was finally ready, whatever that ready meant, I don't know, I guess going through all of what I went through and then finally being tired of it and ready to change, I don't know what it was. But once I was ready, I was able to do it. I mean, I don't even think about using anymore. I have coping mechanisms now. It wouldn't be something that I would even think about. And it's still, sometimes it blows my mind that I even let myself go those many years, waste that many time, that many hours and time just in misery, losing everything left and right, burning every bridge, taking advantage of kindness from kind people, letting people, you know, trick me into thinking that they're being kind to me, but really they're just taking advantage of my despair, things like that, you know. So it was a lot that through those years, but I've learned a lot of lessons from it. Apparently it was something that I needed to go through. I do believe that we go through what we're supposed to go through to learn the lessons we're supposed to learn. And I needed to go through all of that to learn the things that I have learned now, and to be the person that I am now. I had to go through all of that, and it took a long time to come out of that.
You know, have you ever heard the Tom Petty song "Square One"?
I haven't heard that one, but I do love Tom Petty.
I'm gonna take a minute while I'm talking to you to read a quote or a lyric, and it talks a lot about this. And you said that the worst thing, I think you said, or the deepest thing your mom ever said to you is, you know, I hope Leah, right?
Yes.
Doesn't have cut marks on her arms like you do. Was there anything in particular, like, for instance, like when me and Lacey, our MadManPlant, got together, we were a one night stand, and we were both with other people, but we were on a break at the time. And she was a model, I was a photographer. One thing led to another, and one of the comments that she made to me before we got together, because we got together a year after Logan was born. And we had court, and we had lawyers, and we had drop-off dates. We were using all the information we could against each other. But one of the comments that she made to me was like, one day you're going to realize or want to know what it would have been like to be a real family, and that's going to haunt you. Because at the time, I wasn't really giving the opportunity. Plus, I also had an ex that made things very, very difficult. So, as much as I did want to be there, it was a nightmare situation. But that comment alone stood out to me, and it's why we're married today, and that we're a real family and everything like that. But was there anything that your kid ever said to you, or Leah ever said to you, that was just like, ow, like, that's very profound, from you guys, and it's like, damn, okay.
Yeah, a couple different things. When my oldest son was about 4 and all of this stuff kind of first started happening, he was going to his dad's to see his dad, and then he would come to my mom's to see my mom, and I would go there and see him. And he asked me, "Why does daddy hate you?" And I didn't know what to say to him, and it really hurt my feelings because I couldn't believe that. Like, why would you say that to a little kid? And why would he, and then what do I say to him, about why his dad hates me because I, messed everything up. So that was kind of one of the first comments. And I had to kind of gear towards that, like, because I didn't want to make his dad, sound bad either. So I had to really fight through that one. And then Aaliyah always asking why she's not living with me. She still will even cry, on the weekends sometimes when she has to go home about it. And then she'll also cry for my mom because she's super close to my mom. So she's very, very emotional still to this day about it, and will cry and say things like, "Why can't I live with you? I don't understand. Why don't we live with you?" And when they were very little, it was hard to hear that because I couldn't really explain that to them in a good way where they would understand. Like, I didn't know what to say, and I would think about it every night while they were saying that. And then the big one, my son always telling me that I lied to him. Like, he was very young when he started telling me that, and realizing that I didn't keep promises or that I would let him down. And he remembered, and he would bring it up when he saw you. Like, best believe he was going to make you be accounted for it and want answers at a very young age. And so those are some of the things that really stick with me from my kids and things that they've said. My kids are such good kids, though, that, it's almost like they didn't even realize a whole lot what was going on, and they don't like hold any hate towards that or anything. They don't ever really even bring it up a whole lot. I think things are just so different now and so much better that they were very young at the time that they maybe don't think about it all the time. But I definitely want to be more honest with them as they get older about it, because they may also just not really remember all of it because they were young.
Oh, sorry, I was muted again. Now, if they ever showed signs, would you try to physically intervene, or would you stand back to try to understand what's going on? Because my thing, it'd be like, as far as they go, like, for instance, Logan, my son, he gets very overwhelmed sometimes, to the point where he also has autism, so that's part of it. To the point where he'll say, "I can't take it anymore," and it kind of makes me a little bit nervous, because I'm like, well, you're 9 years old. You should not be covering your face, screaming, and saying that you can't take life anymore, and you can't take all the things you have to do, which are like go to school and all this other stuff, right? And I'm always kind of like trying to jump in right away and trying to figure it out. But sometimes I'm just like, well, maybe I should watch what is actually going on to try to better understand it. But in that situation, it's a lot different. But how would you gauge that? Like, what would you do if let's say you came home and hypothetically one day, you just found like a needle, right? And obviously you haven't used an X amount of years. What do you do? Because as your parents were addicts, what did they do? And then what do you think you would do? Because I feel like that's just a very tough question, and a perfect person to answer that question would be somebody like yourself.
So it's a little hard to answer because part of you
doesn't want to intervene too much because you might push them away. They may just, it just depends on where they're at in their mental state. So you don't really know, well, okay, I found this needle. How long have they been using? Like, how deep are they into this? Did they just try this? So I think at first you got to sit down with them. I think you got to just let them know that, I found this. So I know you're doing it, and I'm not, you're not in trouble. Like, I need to know how I can help you, like what's going on, because it's normal to maybe go have a drink or something if you're feeling sad, maybe one weekend you just want to, but it's not normal to just be shooting up heroin or shooting up whatever. And it's not normal to use any of those things as a coping mechanism rather than just a good time on the weekend. And then things like heroin and stuff are not a good time. So what exactly is going on? Because a lot of times they started using or tried it because something emotionally or mentally is going on. So I think maybe going at it more at a route like that, rather than focusing on the drug itself and making the kid feel ashamed and scared and like hands up and guarded and not knowing what to say. Maybe kind of more focus on like, what's going on? Like, are you okay? And like going at it from there and just kind of taking it from there with them, because something's going on, or else you wouldn't have found that, And I think when you come at them, what are you doing? What is this? Blah, blah, blah. We're going to take you to rehab. That's not going to help at all. If anything, they might run away, you never know. And then what? And if you really want to help them before they go too deep, you got to kind of step in front right there at the beginning and try to help. But unfortunately, you can only do so much. I mean, sometimes people are just going to do what they're going to do, and kids are going to do what they're going to do. That's why I think it's important to teach your kids confidence, teach them that they're loved, teach them all these rules for life, so that then when they're in certain situations and stuff like that, that's not what they're going to turn to. They're not going to let somebody out on the streets convince them to do that, because they have confidence in themselves and they believe in themselves. They don't need somebody else telling them what to do. They know better, and they're not going to do that to impress anybody or because it's a social setting. And then they're going to have coping mechanism skills. So when they're sad or depressed, it's not the norm to get high or to drown your sorrows. It's the norm to talk about it, or it's the norm to go fishing or read a book or whatever it is that helps you when you're feeling away. If you give your kids these types of tools, I think they're a lot less likely to turn to drugs when they're older, or to turn to people out there in the world to give them advice and to steer them in the wrong way. If they feel loved and get all of that from home and in their setting that they're in every day, I think it plays a tremendous part on their choices in the future. You're not going to be able to stop them from doing whatever they're going to do. But if you kind of give them the tools for life, then you can kind of hope and trust that they're going to be able to make the right decisions on their own.
Yeah. And I think also too, and this is one thing I am worried about, Logan, is it is adolescence. And just like me trying research chemicals and LSD, there's a lot of things that can happen. I definitely believe that mindset is everything. And you said confidence, and I believe that, because I think confidence gives you the ability to stand against, to be able to say no, to be able to turn things down. To get back to that quote that I was talking about, this is by Tom Petty, and this lyrics the song's called Square One. It said, last time, though I hid my tracks so well I could not get back. Yeah, my way was hard to find. Can't sell your soul for a piece of mine. And then it goes down beyond the chorus. It says, try so hard to stand alone. Struggle to see past my nose. Always had more dogs than bones. I can never wear those clothes. It's a dark victory. You won and you also lost. Told her she was satisfied, but it never came across. And I kind of feel like that's kind of like relates in a way to you, because in the sense that, like being an addict, like at the time there was like a limelight where you were satisfied, where it for a moment in a brief period it was working, but it never really came across, you know what I mean? And I just, when we started talking, the song popped into my head, and struggling to kind of see your nose, and trying hard to stand alone, because obviously in that sense you're around a community who's also using, because also where would you find it, type deal.
Exactly. Surrounded by a bunch of other lost people too.
Well, and I think that's what it is, and that's why I think courage and self-respect and morals and being able to stand up for things regardless of backlash or what could happen or what you could lose is so important because it's a defining character. And just like you are now, you're defining your character. You're reinventing yourself. You're not, just because we are these people in brief periods of time doesn't mean that we are forever.
Right.
The problem is sometimes in deep situations like yours, you're fighting something that we know nothing about. So that type of force that's more than physical, that's beyond spiritual, that will can do some nasty things. And also from your point of view, create a person and portray a person that is absolutely not. You know what I mean? And it's almost like having split personality disorder, because
Exactly.
like you and Mac, like you said with you and Mac, once you guys did heroin, you guys were fine for a couple hours, and then all of a sudden, bam, you're going right back at it.
Yeah, completely just flip a switch, completely different person.
How has your outlook on life and future aspirations shifted since recovery? And what are some of the most significant changes in your perspective?
I think for one, in the past, I didn't really think I could do anything that great with life. Didn't think I was smart enough, So I didn't really put a lot of, thought towards goals. But now I've made goals, and I've accomplished them, and I'm not scared to make goals and try to accomplish them. In the past, I was scared of like rejection and failing and things like that. And so I would just not even try. Like, well, we're just not even going to do that because I don't want to feel the feeling of failure. I don't want to feel the feeling of rejection. I don't want to feel any of that. So we're just not going to do that. But I don't live like that anymore. I live and do whatever I want to do that makes me happy. Because that's how I want to live. And I do things that I find purpose in. I went to school and became a medical assistant because when I was in the hospital, I decided that's what I wanted to do. And when I got out, that's what I did. And I've never done anything like that in my life. Like I've said I was going to do a lot of things and I never do them, or I start them and I never finish them. But I'm not like that anymore. I follow through. I set goals, I finish them, or, if I want to do something, I do it and I follow through with it. I don't let fear really stand in my way anymore. I don't think about rejection and failure anymore. Sometimes the little thoughts creep in, of course, but I shut them down. I know how to ignore them now. My outlook on life is more of just go for it, rather than before I was just very guarded and just had a lot of fear. I think I was letting fear and depression rule my life, whereas now I don't let those things rule it. I don't know.
And that's part of that self-discovery and that moving forward. Now, how do you deal with like stigma? I know that when you said you were in the hospital, you got treated very poorly. Didn't even get explained the documentation and everything. When people like hear that about you, how do you, as a person who is one, like just like with I am with like the cannabis, breaking the stigma of smoking, right?
Right.
How are you able to use your story to break the stigma of addicts and recovery, and that it is a real thing, and that people really are taking back their lives and thinking and living differently?
Yeah, because you know what? I even have like patients at work where you can tell that they're judgmental on things like that. They've formed stereotypes. And then they've known me for like a year now. I've been drawing their blood. I've been doing all these things. And then maybe one day I end up feeling comfortable, right? And I share that. And then you should see the look on their face when they're like, no way, not you, really? And then their whole perspective just changes. And they're just so astonished and amazed and happy for me. And they're, and then you can tell that they're kind of thinking a little bit differently, like, oh, okay. And then I have certain patients where I don't share that at all with them, because I can just tell they're just going to immediately think of me differently, because unfortunately some people, you can't change their mind. They just have a certain set of how they think, and it doesn't matter. Once they know certain things about you, they just make their mind up about you. But most people, even if at first they kind of had this certain thought, about an addict and this and that or whatever, the minute that they hear that I was one, and then I, tell them and stuff like that, they're like, oh wow, okay. And people are doing it every day. There's lots of people getting clean and actually doing good things with their lives, and we need to share that, because when you're an addict, you're hopeless. You're just hopeless. And people tell you all these things. You can do this, you can do that, but you don't believe them and you don't want to hear it. You're not seeing anything happening for you. You want instant gratification, and you feel hopeless. But when you're seeing other people around you and you're hearing the stories that they're really doing it, they're not just getting clean, but they're actually changing their lives and living a better life. Then it makes it more believable for you. When I was doing my group therapy, after I got out of the hospital from dying, I did some group therapy for a while. And while I was there, people would come and talk to us, and they would say how they changed their lives and all of this. And they were really making me feel so hopeful, like, oh my God, okay, I really can do this. Because I was still doubting myself. I didn't think I was strong enough. I didn't think I had, the motivation, the ability, the dedication, none of it. But I had these people coming to me and talking to me, and they were doing it. And this time I believed them. In the past, I may have been like, whatever. But this time I believed what they had to say. And then I went for it. And so I think the more that we all do that for other people, the stigma will change. And more people will be more hopeful that they can change their own life too when they get clean. Because some people think, what do I need to get clean for? Nothing's going to be different. Well, you're going to make it different. That's what's going to be different. You make your own life, get clean, and change your whole story, because it's possible.
And I like what you just said there. It's a field of dreams. It is what you make it. You can create the heavens or the hells of life. One of the things I also like what you said is the ability to to create mindset through your work. Seeing yourself as a professional, where at one point you wanted to be a professional, and as you probably saw how quickly that transformed. It probably didn't take as long as you even thought it did. I think what a lot of times, even in business and entrepreneurism, and what a lot of people are trying to do is, you are right. We are a lot of times looking for, instant gratification. We're looking for that quick fix, that next dollar. But the problem is, just like with building a brand, just like with telling a story, just like with sharing a story, it takes years to develop, because if not, it's going to be a very short story, and when you combine hope with community, and then like the support of your mom, and then your family, and then obviously Mac or Gronomic, I think it really helps, and I think it really does aid to Russell Brand's quote about, if you don't have a structured community, you are hopeless. Now, and I hope you are honest, has there ever been a point since that date that you have ever, just like when you did that one time with your friend, where you're like, you know what, I can just do that one time, I'll be fine, it's not a big deal? Has there ever been a point where you thought about doing it again ever since then, like to this date?
You know what? I can honestly say no. I have had dreams where, like, I wake up and I'm like, oh my God, I just used in my dream. Like, I've had those dreams, I haven't had one in a while, but I've definitely had them. But to be honest, I don't know if it maybe started with the fear of my heart being bad and knowing like I can't do drugs, because if I do, I might just really for real kill myself. And I want to live. I don't want to die. So that's enough for me to know and to stay clean. Like, I don't care. So I don't know if it started with that, like the fear of that and the knowledge of that, where I'm like, okay, I'm not doing that ever again, or if it just came with along my journey, gaining the friends that I have, gaining my job and my happiness and all of that, where there's nothing that really makes me want to use. What am I going to use for? I'm already happy, so I don't need to use to get high. I'm happy, and if I want to be high, I'll just smoke some weed and feel lifted and calm, and that's all I need. Like, and then I'm not sad or struggling. And if I am, it's going to pass. I understand that now. I accept that now. I accept all the emotions. I want to go through them all. I want to feel them all, experience them all. I don't want to numb myself anymore. So because I think that way and feel that way, I don't think about using. It doesn't even come into my head at all. I mean, I draw people's blood all day, and I never even like intertwine it with when I used to shoot up. Like, it's very compartmentalized. Like I don't even think about that at all. I just, you know what I mean? It's just, I think after a certain amount of time, just the more time goes by, it becomes easier and easier to let that go and to not turn to that as a source of anything. Just eventually you're so used to not even doing that you're just not going to think about doing it either.
That's exactly the way I feel about cigarettes. Every time I walk by a person smoking a cigarette, I have no like desire, or even thought of like smoking a cigarette or having one. Now, however, this is probably different because obviously you can't enjoy somebody shooting up from a distance, but every once in a while, I do like the passing smell as like I'm walking through like the outside of a bar and you catch that whiff of the cigarette. It's like a certain smell, but everyone it's kind of like an old muscle car when it turns on and you get the exhaust and that old like rich muscle car gas smell.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So
yeah, I do. I used to smoke cigarettes too, so I agree. Like I don't have any want to smoke at all, but once in a while when somebody lights one up and I walk by, I kind of like take it in for a second.
Yeah, you know, like,
yeah.
So, let's see here. Get back to my notes. We also have a giveaway, which we should probably do as we wrap things up because we got about 20 minutes left. Why don't you decide the giveaway name? So it'll be hashtag something. So everybody that's watching, they're going to enter. And if you're on Instagram, you need to come over to YouTube. Same with Twitch and Twitter. For it to activate. Actually, no, Twitch and Twitter, you guys are fine. It's Instagram that's different because I have to use a separate key for that. So what should we all be typing in?
Hashtag sobriety.
Oh, like it. And while I do this, what we are giving away, and let me go get it real quick here. In the meantime, I will set you up with my very next question here. In terms of how you see yourself, how has a struggle with addiction and your subsequent recovery shaped who you are today as a person?
I love me now. Like I don't even know why I never loved me in the past. Like I'm awesome, and I've been through so much, and I've overcame it all, and I never let it break me. I'm resilient. I'm strong-minded. I can get through anything, and I realize all those things because of what I went through. I could not see any of that before. Could not see it. Did not believe it. I needed to go through all of these horrible things, and then some good things too, you know, and then climb up out of it to know who I was. And to really find myself and to see how strong I was, to see how resilient I was, to see what I was made of. It's because of my struggles and my triumphs and the things I've overcame, all of it together, and the things that I didn't overcome or that took me a bunch of times to overcome. It's because of all those things that I am who I am today. And I absolutely love who I am and couldn't be more proud of myself. And that's at the end of the day what matters. Once you are proud of you and you love you, it doesn't matter about anything else or anybody else. Nothing else can condemn that from you once you've accepted that about yourself and realized that about yourself.
No, I really appreciate that. And I think that one thing, I love my life, but I also am a person that is struggling to be internally happy. Not that I need any certain things, but in my aspect, I just feel like I haven't served my purpose. I haven't done great work yet, which I feel like right now in this conversation and the conversations I've been having is starting to shape that great work. But, is a desire to want to be better, and differently and to have value and to live a legacy and something that you can be proud of where you feel like you're really making a difference every day. And, the relationships you have and the time that you spend with people means something, because I think sometimes we get so tied up with like social media and with the things that are going on. And, like yesterday, 804 Grow Tent, one of my friends, he's on my Discord, and he's been a great guy. He helps me film some of my stuff. We went to National Cannabis Festival, and then after that, me and him and his wife went to dinner, and to have that community, all based on the fact that I wanted to know him if I didn't smoke, and he's battling his own depression and traumas himself, so it's just really great how everything comes together. But this is what they're gonna win. So people should be entering here. So I'm going to start it. So you're going to do hashtag sobriety, all lowercase. And I'm going to close my door real quick because my son is on VR and he loves to scream. It's funny until you got to listen to him. So here's what they're winning. So they're winning, and this is all stuff we got in Boston. So they're winning the springtime drink, which is pretty cool. A little cup. It's all like grippy and everything. Really, really nice. You got the springtime grinder. We got coasters, rolling papers. We got 2 style hats.
Nice.
That one. We got Dead by Dawn Genetics by my good friend. These are the Jackal. And then we also have Permanent Profile by GI Genetics. We were with them yesterday in Washington, D.C. Some fresheners. We also got this nice rolling tray, which is pretty cool. And then we also got a plain deck of cards.
Oh, so, nice.
Yeah. And I told Mac, and for those who don't know, Gronomics, he is the mod. So he took his lovely children. So Melissa here could have a great interview, really set her up for success. And you can just see the love back and forth between both of you. It reminds me much of me and Lacey. Me and Lacey are the exact same way. We got each other's back. We set each other up for the best. We really care about one another. And it's just an awesome feeling when you have that. So, hey, everybody needs to enter because in like seconds, we're going to pick a winner. Make sure everybody push hashtag sobriety. And let's see here. Enter. All right. So far, we got 5 people. And then as I go on, get back to my notes here. All right, here we go. I'm going to pick a winner. Michael Lumpkin. What's going on, my dude? You are my winner. So, hold on, let me share my screen. Bam, dude. Congratulations, by the way. All you need to do is send me a DM on Instagram with your full name, your address, social security number, all credit cards with 20 plus limits. Don't worry, cheap shit. But congratulations, my dude. So let me talk about this. Growing up, and before we're gonna kind of wrap it up because we got like 10 minutes left. If you could go back, and this is something I always wish I could do, and I'll show you a little video that I made when I was 13 years old to myself as an older person. What would you have told your younger self about your experiences? And would you have encouraged your younger self to do it? Or, and you have to think about like this too. If it didn't go down like this, you may not have the family and you may not have Mac. You may also be living a totally different life. So there's also like a balance, and that's why it's like a tricky question, because I just kind of balance the same thing in my head, but if you could go back to maybe like your 13-year-old self, way before you ever did anything, what would you like? What kind of confessions would you have to yourself about what you're about to go through?
I would tell myself that I'm going to go through a lot of doubting myself, and making a lot of wrong decisions, and constantly searching for something, but searching for it in all the wrong places. I'm never going to find it where I'm searching, but that eventually I get there, I find it, and just to hold on, that it's going to be a hell of a ride, and it's going to be painful, and there's going to be a lot of hardships through it, but it's all going to be worth it, and you're going to get through it, and everything's going to be okay. I definitely wouldn't change anything I went through. The people I've met along the way, the wisdom I've gained, the lessons I've learned, the tribe that I have now, just everything. It definitely wouldn't be what it is if I didn't go through what I went through, and if I didn't take the path and all those wrong decisions, all of those things. It would completely change where I'm at today, and who I have in my life. And I love where I'm at today. I love who I have in my life. So I definitely wouldn't change any of it. I would let my younger self go through it all. But just let her know that she's going to be okay, and she's going to get through it, and that it's going to be worth it in the end, that she's going to eventually wake up and have a good life. It's not going to be all struggles forever.
I really like that a lot, because you don't know, sometimes maybe it would have been easier differently. Maybe it would have been wound up differently, but to have it all the exact way it is, it's not always by chance. It's by design, and there's a reason for everything. And just like so many people in these comments, have been saying like, you're here for a reason, you're doing great. So many people are supporting you. I don't know if you can see the comments or reading them, but a lot of people really love your story. And, for the first time that you're on the show, to be so open and so brave, means a lot. I want to spend the last 10 minutes of the episode really opening up the floor to you, to talk about maybe things that we didn't talk about, or maybe things you wanted to say, really give you a presence, to really speak as your first time, because I'm really honored as a creator and as like, I guess, an activist in a way, to have you on our platform, to be so vulnerable, to share your story, and it's just very incredible. And I really love what I'm doing, and I love the fact that you got inspired and wanted to come on, and it just makes me feel good, because sometimes I don't know who listens to this or who doesn't listen to this, but I just feel like with real people, real stories. So why don't you take the last 10 minutes and really just open it up, and
Well, I am really, really grateful to be here today. I was super nervous about it, but that's more of just my anxiety that always plays ahead of time. But at the end of the day, I knew getting my story out would be good for me and be good for other people. I definitely would like to continue sharing it one day. I would love to be somebody that goes around and speaks to people, or just be somehow involved in that community, because I have went through a tremendous amount, and I do think that I can help other people. So I do agree with whoever commented that I am here for a reason. I know that I lived through what I lived through, because I do have a purpose, and it's probably to help other people that are going through similar things, and reach other people. And being here today kind of opened that up for me, because I'm a very complacent person and a very routine type person, and I just do the same things every day in like a routine, go to work, do this, do that. So if it weren't for doing this today, I don't know where or when I would have ever started with doing something like that. And this has kind of opened it up to where now I will feel way more comfortable and way more better in the future to do something more like this. I would like to continue doing it. It was the first time I've shared my story with kind of everybody. People on my Facebook and stuff, they know some of it, and they've seen like my journey throughout this time, and they've all been super supportive. Like, the amount of love that I've received on Facebook and on the internet from people that I grew up with, people that from different states that I know, and then people that are in my everyday life, people that don't even see me, haven't even seen me since junior high.
have all been very, very supportive. And it's because I have been open about my journey and about my struggles, and then shown that I'm hopeful and stuff throughout it all too. And I think that helps other people be the same way, or at least try to think to be the same way, because bad things are going to happen sometimes, even if you're not an addict, and sad things are going to happen, and you're going to go through things, and it is all a part of life. And you just need to experience each experience and take from it what you can. And that's kind of what how I'm kind of trying to live now that I've went through all of those things. I want other people to kind of think that way too. I want them all to just get in line. And so I know I can't make people, see that or think that, but if I kind of share my story with them and let them know, it might kind of open them up to thinking a different way too, or believing in themselves a little bit more. Because I had no hope at all. And then I even felt like even when I get clean, nothing's going to change. Like I still thought like I'll get clean, but I'm still going to be miserable. I'm not going to have a good life. Nothing good is going to happen. I'll just be clean, whatever. And that's how I thought and how I felt until it all just started happening. And then I realized it was much bigger than that. And I realized that I was probably super depressed for so long because I did have more of a purpose, and I wasn't living up to it at all. I wasn't doing anything in steps towards having a purpose or living up to the purpose that my soul knew that I had. And now that I'm clean and I went through all of that stuff, I'm kind of doing that now every day, just by showing up in life and doing my best. And no matter how I'm feeling, just still showing up and having hope and being there for my friends and going to work and putting my all into it, or, whatever. That's just what I do every day, just to go through each day. And I don't know.
I'm muted again. God damn it.
I was gonna say, but then I was like, what if he's coughing?
Yeah, like I said, I try to be respectful. So, I don't want to ask some questions the whole time. You're like, But what I was saying, damn, now I lost my train of thought. Oh man. Damn it. No, okay, yes, showing up every day. I think that's really what it's about. It's about what you make it. And when you show up for yourself, it's the most important thing. And that's why, like I work out of my house, right? So when I work out of my house, like I don't have to get dressed. I could just wear sweats and not do my hair. But I do my hair and I put a polo on and I look nice. Like I could go out to a meeting right now if I wanted to, but I do it because it helps me maintain that I'm a professional. So to be a professional, I will dress like a professional. It doesn't matter whether I'm working here or there. So it's creating that mindset, just like you are, with showing up every day. You know what? I'm going to show up every day. I'm going to be busy. I'm going to be active. I'm going to be, a part of it. And one of my biggest struggles in life is really trying to be present. I have a lot of things going on, just like everybody. And sometimes, like, when you should be present, you're not. And then when you are present, it doesn't matter. It's like it's too late, like that 3 a.m., epiphany. That's why I say the 3 a.m. effect.
Right.
But I really like what you're doing. And like you, I also want to speak and travel the world and talk to people in large audiences. I will say that what I've been recommended towards by my mentor is you should definitely think about writing a book. And it could be a small like book. You can find like publishers on Fiverr and other platforms and stuff like that. But you have a great story, especially about thought process and mindset and everything like that. And that they said speakers who have books are more credible because it's actually in written form and it's documented, and now you have something that people can relate to and learn more about you. So it's a better way for people to access your story. Because one thing about like these lives that I'm doing, your viewers want to be able to access you, with pre-recorded material, photos, videos, lives. And when you become more accessible to like share your story, for example, it's easier for your story to get out because you're constantly doing it. So what I would do is maybe start thinking about using your Instagram page, which you have right now, or whichever platform you want to start on, and start recording segments of your life and what you want to start telling people. Like I do, growing education. So I'm talking about growing and, teaching that. But you can start talking to like moms because you dealt with postpartum depression and a lot of other things. So you have a wide range of topic, and then also, like I told you, I want to get you and Lacey and a bunch of other women on the Smoke Busters podcast to do a woman segment because I think it's great that we have more women coming up and really talking about their grows, their smoking, their lifestyles, their past, so it's really awesome. So before we wrap things up, is there anything else, we need to know about you? How can we support you and find you and learn more about you?
So my Instagram is Melissaaa.411. So you can find me on that. I am on Facebook a little bit more, but I think that's just, I'm just used to being on there and stuff. So I will try to get more active on the Instagram. On my Facebook, it's just Melissaaa Lee, Lea. And that's how you can find me on there. Let's see. And then I want to thank everybody for watching. I appreciate it. Anybody who did watch, anybody who will watch after, that's great. And then anybody that's struggling, like just reach out, even if you don't have family or community or anybody around you, you can create that by reaching out to any program anywhere near you that is offering help. You literally just have to take that first step of being willing to accept the help. And there are people out there that want to help you and that will be there for you. And it just takes that first step, and there's hope, and you can do it.
No, and you definitely define that and exemplify that. So I really do appreciate you. I get to grill your lovely is it your husband, right? You guys are married, right?
We're not actually married. One day maybe, but we
me and Lacey aren't married either, but we were married by child, lifestyle.
Yeah, we are, exactly. We've been together for years. We live together. We're a team with each other. Yep. We have our child. Yep. He helps with my other children. So we're married by law in our heads, in our hearts.
The morals, the love, the respect, that's really what makes it. But I get to grill him on Wednesday, so make sure you tune in so you guys can see that. I would definitely want to have you on again. Thank you for trusting me and our platform to tell your story for the first time. It really means a lot to me because I'm really trying hard and I'm really putting everything I have into this. And I want people to understand what the value is and, what we can all achieve together. To close out, I do want to thank out my sponsors. For the silver package, we got AC Infinity and Simple Sullivans. For the bronze, we got Hygrozyme, No Clone Left Behind, and Good Luck Steph Productions. And guys, we have more content. I'll be releasing interviews from NCF. Check the website. We have more giveaways coming up. And I really wish the best to you and Mac or Grownomics. You really are special, and I really appreciate you being on.
No, I appreciate you and everything that you're doing. I love it. I love your platform and the guests that you have, the questions you ask. You're definitely going to be doing big things. You're already in the works of it now. And I'm very, very grateful that you let me be a part of that and that this is where I shared my story first. I love that. And so thank you so much.
Yeah, no, I feel the exact same way. I mean, it really works great. So guys, have a great time and we'll see you very, very soon.
Thank you.